Hi friends, welcome to Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'm Jenny and we're gardening here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7. Today I'd like to talk to you about how I'm keeping track of all the plants that I've put into the garden this year. I've bought lots and lots and lots and lots of new plant material this year. Kind of unusual year in that regard, and I really want to make sure that I'm keeping track of what plants have been planted where in my garden journal and my record keeping system. So come on with me and let's talk about a few different ways that you can keep track of what's in your gardens. During my backyard renovation series this year, I've showed you lots of videos of me planting new plants into the ground, everything from large trees all the way down to small annuals and bulbs and things like that, everything in between. There are so many plants here that I've planted 4 or 5 years ago that I honestly can't remember what they are, and I wish I knew, because maybe I want to get another one to match it, or maybe I'm having trouble with it and I need to look up some information about how to take care of it and make it perform better in my garden, but I don't know exactly what it is. So it's really important to me to try to document and keep track of what is planted where in my garden, mainly for the future, so that I can do garden maintenance decisions and maybe other garden design decisions with that information. Okay, the thing is, I know from experience there's no way I can remember all of this stuff. Why do I know this? Well, because like I just said, I planted things 4 or 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember what they are. And so now I find myself doing Google image searches or plant ID apps and things like that to try to figure out what exactly is this. I might know the kind of plant it is, but not know the variety name, stuff like that. So that really bothers me. So I know that I cannot rely on my memory. One thing I definitely can do, and I do often, is I just write them into my journal. Now this is just a spiral notebook of notebook paper, and I write down what I bought, when, where I bought it, and what varieties they are. Except I'm not really great at it. For example, here's one that says that on Friday, which Friday? Who knows? I went to Sun Nursery and I bought and then I planted 1 Sweet Spire, which one? Who knows? 1 Nandina, which one? Who knows? 5 Spikenards, 2 Pulmonaria, which ones? Don't know. And that I bought 2 Euphorbias, again, no variety name, and so forth. So this method for me has been better than nothing, but I haven't been really good about documenting every piece of information in this notebook. I have this other garden journal, which I think I've shared about it before in a different video, and I'll link that video both on the screen up here and in the description down below. But this is a book that I bought called the Garden Journal Planner and Logbook, and I really like this journal because it has a lot of charts and graphs and lists and papers and things like that. And I have cut the spine off and put 3-ring holes in it, and now I've got it in a binder. But I wanted to share with you that it has this section that looks like this, and it's 1 page per plant, and it asks you to document things like the soil requirements, the sowing and planting dates, what kinds of treatments, fertilizers and sprays do you do, when to prune it, how to protect it, any cultivation notes, it's got any poisonous issues, any problems. It offers a place here that you could do a photo pasting in here, or even do a drawing of it. It asks for its botanical name, its common name, the plant type, its attributes, what kind of sun exposure, water requirements, hardiness zone, etc., etc., etc. So there's just lots of information that you can capture about each of the plants in your garden using this chart. Now, there is a place down here for free-form notes, so if you've got some information you want to put in here but it doesn't have a spot on it, you can put it down in the notes section. If you don't like that 1 plant per page chart, you can use this chart instead. This is 1 plant per line, and it gives you an opportunity to write the date and what you planted and where you planted it, and there's 2 columns per page, and then there's lots of different pages available to you in this part of the journal as well. But honestly, if I'm going to be writing down or keeping track of all of this kind of information about my garden plants, I actually want it to be on the computer because I want to be able to sort it and search on it and things like that. So I have put a ton of information about the plants that I bought this year into a spreadsheet on my computer. You could use Microsoft Excel, you could use any really spreadsheet application that you have access to, but I like to use Google Drive and Google Sheets. That spreadsheet app is available on my phone. When I'm at the nursery, I can quickly get on there and look up and see what I have or what I'm looking for, and also then I can access it from my computer. It's just more available to me in the cloud that way. So I have a document on my Google Drive called Plant Log. I have several columns here in which I'm keeping information. First is the plant type, so is it a shrub or perennial, an annual, a bulb, a vine, or a tree? And then the botanical name, its common name, and a particular variety name. The quantity of plants that I purchased and what sun exposure it requires. The expected height and width and the required spacing, and then the hardiness zone information, what kind of pH preference does it have for its soil, what kind of watering preferences does it have, what is its season of interest, so when does it flower, when does it have berries, and so forth, what its pruning schedule should be, what level of deer resistance it has, where I purchased it, when I purchased it, does it have a warranty or not, where I planted it, and that's just which garden in the yard did I put it into, and when I planted it, and that's just the month and the day. And so I currently have, let's see, 75 rows in my spreadsheet. So that's pretty good. This is not every plant in my garden, of course. This is just the plants that I put in this year. And actually, this isn't even all of the plants that I put in this year because not everything made it into the spreadsheet yet. So I really like this method of keeping track of things. Spreadsheets, lists, all of that is great because it is data driven and you can do searching on it and you can really have a lot of information at your fingertips. But also, I'm a visual person and I like to have a visual representation of my garden also. That helps me envision what could go where, and it helps me when I'm planning what bloom colors to put together and what foliage types to put together and things like that. So there's another way that I also try to keep track of what I've planted in my garden, and there's two main ways that I go about it. One of them is to draw kind of a mostly to scale drawing of the garden. Here's an example. This is a representation of the side garden right over here. So you can see that I actually, a few years ago, I got out my measuring tape and I made a to scale drawing of the side garden, and this is just half of it. And this is, I think 1 square is 2 feet on this chart. And then I drew in the pathway, I drew in the porch, the fence, the gates, and then I drew circles where there were plants and I labeled them with letters and numbers. And then over on this side, I made the list of what the letters and numbers mean. So this is a fairly decent representation of the side garden over here. And I have 2 pages of this because I put half of the garden on each page, and that's mainly because I wanted it to be the big enough scale so that I wasn't trying to draw little teeny tiny circles. So the other half of the garden is right here. And so that's what all these circles are and all these numbers and things like that. So that's definitely a way you can go about it, and that is to make to scale drawing. Get out your measuring tape, get out your graph paper, make yourself as best you can a scale drawing of your garden, and then you can draw in roughly where your plants are. And I just use circles and numbers and letters to keep my records in that way. Now for the backyard renovation, I do have a great drawing of the whole backyard. So you can see this entire rectangle, and you can see the oval of the grass and the stage and all the different planting areas. Now this is going to be great. I will be documenting all of my trees and shrubs onto this chart. because it gives me the big overview of what the greenery is, what the evergreen screening is, and kind of where the flowering shrubs are, and I'll be able to have a kind of a bird's eye view of the backyard of the structure of the garden with this chart. But this is way too small of a scale for me to put in all of my perennials and annuals that I have in here. I would be squeezing them way too tightly together and things like that. So I think I'm going to make myself at least 3, maybe 4. I might make one that is from the arbor over here on this back corner, and then from the arbor over to here on this other corner, and then along here, and then along here. And that way I'll be able to have a much larger scale representation of all the different plants that got planted into each of these areas of the garden. Now, you don't have to do a scale drawing. You could, of course, walk around your garden with a piece of paper and a writing utensil and make a sketch. So that's one way to go about it, and there is nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to just try to sketch what I see here. I've got a big walnut tree, and then let's see, the holly is here. The sidewalk comes like, not sidewalk, but path comes like that, roughly. And let's see, in front of the holly I've got daisies, and then I've got a hosta and a hosta, and more daisies. Daisies, hosta 1 and hosta 2. And then I've got a lily here, and some iris here. And then let's see, this comes to here, and then it goes this way. This is the patio. So I've got columbines here, and another hosta here, and daylilies. And I've got a, what is that? A daphne, and a hydrangea. And back in there, I've got some Solomon seal. Did I miss anything? No. All right, so I just drew a very not to scale drawing of this section of the garden that's right over here by me. And you can see it was just really rough and ready. It is not to scale because the patio isn't really here in comparison to this garden, but this could be totally enough. It could be all I need to do if I want to have a visual representation of what's in my garden. Now, I might choose to actually write plant names on this chart. I might choose to write plant colors, or I could get my colored pencils out and draw in the circle what color the flowers of the plants are. There's any number of ways to be creative about it, but this could totally be sufficient for keeping track of what plants I've put in my garden. Another really cool way to do it is to take photographs of the garden and make sure that each photograph covers one section of the garden, and then just slide yourself over and then take another photo, and then keep sliding yourself down the garden and take all the photos so that every part of the garden has been covered in a photograph. And then you can print them out onto a piece of paper and something like this. So on this one I put 4 different photos of the same border on the garden, and it goes from left to right as I go down the page here. And so then what you do with that is you can draw letters and numbers in circles to label the plants in the pictures, and then make your plant list over here. And so that can be a really cool way to remember what you have in your garden. Or instead of writing it by hand, you could, of course, write it out on your computer if you want to. If you like that sort of work, you could totally do that. You could also do them 1 per page. That's totally fine too. And then you'd have your plant list on another page. Now, if you are a computer user extraordinaire and you love to organize yourself on the computer, you could also keep track of what you've planted in your garden by taking photographs of your garden and then just filing them away into an organized filing system. You might have a folder where you keep all of the plants that are in the garden by the front door. And then you have another folder where you keep all of the plants, photos of the plants that are in the garden by the back door. And if that works for you, then you go for it. That one's a little more complicated than it would work for me, so I don't do it that way. Of course, you could always take a bunch of videos of your garden and just walk down the row and say the plant names out loud as they appear on your video, and then store those videos on your computer or put them out on YouTube like so many of us are doing. Share them with your friends and family. That would be an excellent way to keep track of what you have in your garden. I want to talk about plant tags for just a second. There's so much good information on the plant tags when you get them from the nursery. So that would be a wonderful thing to do, is save all your plant tags. Now, you could plant your plant with the plant tag right beside it. That's what a lot of us do, and I used to do that all the time as my only way of keeping track of what those plants are in the garden. The problem with that is the plant tags tend to somehow disappear. Sometimes they break off, sometimes they get buried, sometimes an animal comes through and causes damage in the garden, and then all of a sudden your plant tags are gone. Sometimes your housemates are helping you garden and they kind of disappear that way too. So keeping the plant tags with the plants in the garden doesn't always work for me, and I have learned not to rely on that as the only way to remember what a plant is. So then what I do now is I take the plant tag and I put it into a storage location. This year I have a big jar full of plant tags of plants that I've planted this year. I have Ziploc bags from previous years showing which plants were planted in previous years. So I have a bag from 2016 and a bag from 2017. I've got nothing from 2018 or 19 or 20. So I was very irregular in my plant record management, and that's why I'm trying to really be better this year in 2021. So those are just a few of the ways that I've thought of to keep track of all the information that I'd like to keep track of in my garden. Of course, I am not very consistent at it, but I'm trying. That's the main thing. What do you do? How do you keep track of what plants you've planted? Or do you? Do you just let it go? You just put them out there and enjoy them. That's fine too. But if you have thoughts or tips or tricks or suggestions for me or for any of the other viewers to share, go ahead and put them down in the comment section down below. I'm sure we could all learn from each other and share tips with each other. That'd be great. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm really glad you were here today. I hope that you got some good ideas out of it. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We'd love to have you here as a regular visitor. Hit the like button. That really helps YouTube show this video to more people. And I will see you again in another video very soon. Thanks a lot, friends. Bye-bye.